This university is extremely important to the community in the Eastern Townships. It's important to the economy. It's important to the social fabric of the region. I hope the minister sits down with the University of Bishops and finds a solution.
That's Greg Kelley doing the unforgivable, speaking English on the floor of the National Assembly today and bringing up, of course, the situation with those tuition hikes, specifically in this case to Bishops University. Greg Kelley is on the line. Greg, did you get a couple of dirty looks or...
Oh, yeah, I got a dirty look, especially from Simon Jolin Barrette, but
I bet.
I have a constitutional right to use the English language inside the National Assembly. It's the House of the people, and English-speaking Quebecers, we are part of that. We are part of this society. We are part of Quebec. So, from time to time, I do use the English language, and I have no hesitation nor any problem doing it.
So today was not the first day you brought this up, this whole tuition hike idea. I know this happened a couple of days ago. I'm just wondering what kind of reaction, if any, have you had from the government when you ask about this?
Yeah, so to fill in your listeners what's been going on in Quebec City, so I asked a question on Tuesday specifically about bishops. Of course, we know the announcement is damaging to all of our universities, but bishops and the principle is very clear. This might mean that bishops close it down. So day one, I went very specifically because that's an area that is represented by CAQ MNAs. So I wanted to say, this is really bad for the region. The people of Sherbrooke have no interest in this. The mayor of Sherbrooke came out and said, please rethink what you're doing because, Bishops is not responsible for the decline of French. So I went with that. And then on the second day, we did a group questioning of the government. My colleague Madwa asked specifically about, do you have any statistics or studies that show this will actually stop the decline of French or that it will mean there's less English on the streets in Montreal? What are you basing your decisions on? My colleague Philomena Roti, she asked a question about the economic, impacts for the city of Montreal, which the Chambre de Commerce came out with this week. And then I asked for a special debate this afternoon with the minister. And when I arrived to do it, guess what? She wasn't made available, and I had to do the debate with somebody from Quebec City, Eric Kerr, who is not responsible for education in any sense of the word. So I went out there and I made the pitch about why they need to rethink their decision. I fought for, what I believe is right, what our party believes is right, but I was disappointed that Minister Jerry did not make herself available for the special debate and that Simon Jolin Barrette purposely let her go so she didn't have to face these questions and explain to everybody again, why are you making the decision and, how are you going to manage the impacts? What's going to happen to bishops? So that's just an update of what, the Liberal Party was doing in question period and in the House this week, trying to get the CAQ to rethink this decision.
Will you have an opportunity to have that debate again with Pascal Derry?
Now, on that special debate, she can get out of it because it's up to the leader who he decides to send, but that doesn't mean she can escape question period. But I think there is at least some good or at least some division amongst the CAQ on this. And I think this week was very telling because at the beginning of the week, Minister Derry said, well, maybe I'll think about an exemption for bishops, and work with the university. Then François Legault came back and said, absolutely not, no exemption for anyone. But then the MNA who is responsible for the riding, St. François, where we find Bishops University, she came out and said, well, now we're going to try to find solutions for bishops. Whoa. Now you're trying to find solutions to a problem you just created? And then on top of that, Minister Girard, who was responsible for relations with English-speaking Quebecers, came out and said very warm and glowing things about University of McGill and all of the English universities contribute positively to our economy. And I'm going to go speak to the Premier and speak to Minister Derry to see what is being done. So in a single day, there was 4 different positions from the CAQ on what is being done on this university question. And that just goes to show to everyone listening, this was a decision because they got creamed in Jean Talon. It was done on the back of a napkin, and they did not consider the fallout of this. And what is really important is that it's not just, the Liberal Party and the English-speaking community talking about this. We have the mayor of Sherbrooke, who was a francophone, coming out and speaking against it. Mayor Plante went out and did mention her concerns and worries about the situation. And even the principal for bishops, he's a francophone. Mm-hmm. So in my view, this is not even a linguistic issue. We can say that, of course, our community is frustrated, but there are a lot of Quebecers of all walks of life who are proud of all of our universities, whether it's McGill, whether it's Concordia, whether it's UTM, and they don't like seeing the government attack institutions like this because we know how important it is for our society And, not just for the city of Montreal, but Bishops is a perfect example. Great employer out in the city of Lennoxville and in the region of the Sherbrooke. So it has consequences across the entire province.
So I think people hearing you now obviously are heartened by the fact that at least the Liberals, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, Greg, but it's been kind of rough being a provincial Liberal here and kind of hearing every day when we talk about, what's going on or very little going on, that there is at least this feedback, and I'm glad you're standing up and doing it, and so are your colleagues. So that's good. I'm curious what reaction has been in the House from the rest of the opposition. I thought I heard Pascal Bérubé actually saying, he doesn't mind the idea. He wanted to see the plan. In other words, how this would be affected. But I'm also pretty sure I heard Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, when asked about this, say, this is a bad plan or a bad solution for a real problem. And that problem, of course, is the funding of these French universities. So what have you heard? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so the other parties, besides getting asked questions kind of during scrums, they're not bringing it to the House. I think ultimately the PQ would like to see Bill 101 applied to universities in their world in an independent Quebec. Quebec Solidaire, you would think how they've defended tuitions in the past. They want to be in this fight for students and kind of look at this question and, want to maybe be on the side of the Liberals, but pretty quiet. And they do have an M&A from Sherbrooke, and I wish she would stand up and be a little bit more vocal, but that's decisions that they're making. No one's really gone out to try and defend or ask the government to rethink this decision altogether. But again, you know what? There's been a lot of mobilization on the ground from a lot of different people. And even Michel Leblanc from the Chambre de Commerce de Montréal. That's another francophone we can add to the list. It's really uniting people across the board. And of course, the minister. And just for your listeners on the question for Francophone universities, there is an issue that they are underfunded. There's a lot of regional universities that exist across Quebec, and they need more funding. But that doesn't have to be done by taking away from, English-speaking universities. We should fund all of our institutions to what they need because we need to have talented and smart people everywhere across Quebec. Mm-hmm. So again, this announcement too, and the demands from the universities, they need $1 billion. Pascal Dury said that the best she can get from this announcement was $100 million. So it doesn't solve anything for our Francophone universities at all.
So, Greg, this story isn't going anywhere. So it's still in the news cycle. If anything, it's gaining momentum. It's gotten attention across Canada. François Legault, as we know, is not good at admitting that he made a mistake. Is there any way for there to be like an about face where he can still save face? Do you see that as any possibility here?
I do believe there's a possibility. I'm not going to say for sure it's going to happen, but we have to keep asking questions. We have to keep putting facts out there, too, to counter sort of the story they say, this protect the French language, et cetera, because it doesn't really seem to be the case. And in the French press this week, there were in all the papers, a lot of, opinion thinkers saying, this doesn't really add up. And that's extremely important, too, to putting pressure that they can easily just ignore the stories in the Montreal Gazette or what's being said on CJAD or CPD. But when it's kind of across Quebec, I think it sort of makes them rethink things. But again, it's up to them to make a decision. I hope they come to their good senses. And it'd be nice to see the Minister, Pascal Dury, sit down with all the universities. And instead of just going out and doing something without announcing it beforehand or telling McGill, Bishops, and Concordia this is happening, sit down with the consortium of all the universities and say, what can we do to make sure something works for all of you and that we're ensuring your success for the long term.
Couldn't agree more. Greg, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. You and everybody else making a big deal about this because it is a big deal. And as you said, to the point about, the French press, we so rarely see the French press address an Anglo, if you want to call it that situation. So this was very positive, I think, as well as you just brought up. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
No problem. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
You too. Say hi.